Then this chase is over. Kiff, set course for the nearest XM repair facility. Meanwhile, we shall sing top hits from the 80s.
Which 80s, sir?
For me, there are only one 80s. Smell like I sound, I'm lost and I'm found, and I'm hungry like the wolf.
During the 80s, Duran Duran's success saw many comparisons to Beatlemania 2 decades prior. Duran Duran became global stars thanks to their innovative use of imagery and music. In today's video, let's talk about how the band became huge and at the same time changed MTV. Duran Duran's history dates back to Birmingham, England in 1978, with two teenagers, bassist John Taylor and keyboardist Nick Rhodes, who lived around the corner from one another. Nick worked as a DJ while John worked the door at a nightclub. They also enlisted Taylor's art school friend, a guy named Steve Duffy, who fronted the group and played bass. Initially calling themselves Dr. Duran Duran, taking inspiration from a character from Jane Fonda's 1968 film Barbarella, Taylor and Rhodes were kindred spirits. They shared similar tastes in music, and they had the same vision of what they wanted to do artistically. They wanted to take rock music to the dance floor. John and Nick took inspiration from a variety of different acts, including the Beatles, Chic, the energy of punk rock groups like The Clash and Sex Pistols, in addition to Queen, David Bowie, Roxy Music, and electronic music. They both attended a lot of concerts together, and it was following each show they would evaluate the detail of both the music and the stage setup. The trio played their first gig together on April 5th, 1979 at the Birmingham Polytechnic. The band underwent a lineup change, adding Simon Colley, who played bass, as well as clarinet. Taylor was playing guitar by this point in time, but after only a handful of gigs, Duffy and Colley left the group by the spring of '79. Taylor soon moved to bass, and they found a drummer in Roger Taylor, no relation to John. Roger was pretty reserved, but he shared the same influences as the two musicians, and he also dressed like them as well. As for their original frontman Duffy, he played with some other groups as well as pursued a solo career and had some success. Now calling themselves Duran Duran, the band became regulars at the local club called the Rum Runner, which was sort of like Studio 54 and was owned by brothers Paul and Michael Barrow. It was a hotspot for experimental music, with Rhodes recalling to Rolling Stone, it was full of businessmen with trendy shirts on, but it was also the hippest club in town. One day Taylor and Rhodes showed up to the club with a demo tape asking the owners if they could play a gig. The Barrow brothers loved the tape, and they went as far as asking the musicians if they had a manager, which they didn't. The two parties soon agreed to a deal whereby the band could not only play at the venue, but they could rehearse there too and work there as well. The brothers were smart at marketing. They not only helped shape Duran Duran's iconic lineup, but they also played a pivotal role in shaping the band's image. It was at the brothers' insistence they wanted the musicians to fire their standing guitarist and singer, which they did. The band then placed an ad in the British music paper Melody Maker, which is how they met guitarist Andy Taylor, no relation to John. His father encouraged him to become a musician from a young age, with Andy picking up the guitar at just the age of 5. It was by the time he was 16, he left home and started touring Europe with other bands, playing in gentlemen's clubs as well as military bases. Just as he returned from tour, he saw Duran Duran's ad in Melody Maker, and well, the rest was history. The band was pretty honest with the guitarist during his audition, with him recalling to Rolling Stone. They were quite blatant. They said, "We're posers, we want a good-looking poser band." Andy responded to that saying, "I said good because I like dressing up and I love wearing makeup." The group just now needed a frontman, and they had already auditioned something like 30 vocalists according to the Associated Press. It was a barmaid at the Rum Runner who suggested an ex-boyfriend of hers named Simon LeBon, who was a drama student at Birmingham University. He was growing tired of drama and wanted to do something else. LeBon came in for the audition, with Rhodes recalling. This chap turned up in pink leopard skin trousers, brown suede jacket, dark glasses, and pointed boots. He said his name was LeBon, and I thought, no, he can't be called LeBon. The band started playing their instruments, and LeBon, having brought a journal with him, already had lyrics penned to something like 20 songs. They ended up writing a song pretty quickly together, with their first composition being Sound of Thunder. The band came up during the so-called New Romantics era, which was typically associated with new wave and synth pop, with young people dressing up androgynously, taking inspiration from T-Rex, David Bowie, as well as Roxy Music. Though some of the band members in the press claim the similarities between their outfit and other groups coming up like Spandau Ballet were purely coincidental. LeBon, however, was more honest, telling Rolling Stone, "We jumped on the bandwagon. We got our feet in the door as quick as we bloody well could. We needed something to give the band a sort of personality, and it worked." Their managers, wanting to get exposure for the band on a national level, paid their way to get the group to open for actress and singer Hazel O'Connor. Her career was on the upswing with her record and movie of the same name, Breaking Glass. It was at the final show of that tour, Duran Duran joined O'Connor on stage to do a cover of David Bowie's Suffragette City. In the audience that night was an employee of EMI Records, Dave Ambrose, who famously signed Sex Pistols. He was enthralled with LeBon's performance, and he thought the rest of the band had a great image. Duran Duran soon nabbed a deal with EMI by the fall of 1980. The label put out the group's debut record, which was self-titled in June of '81. Duran Duran's debut single, Planet Earth, ended up peaking at number 12. But it was the song Girls on Film that was the most successful on the album, peaking at number 5 in the UK. The album for itself peaked at number 27 on the charts. But in America, the record was a dud, at least initially. They had no charting singles, despite getting some attention and creating some controversy with the video for Girls on Film, a song that was a criticism of the modeling industry and its superficiality. There were two music video directors at the time, Lol Cream and Kevin Godley, who did outrageous and quirky videos. MTV had just launched the same year as the group's debut album came out, so there wasn't a lot of innovation yet in music videos. In fact, Duran Duran became one of the first bands to marry visuals and music together. Duran Duran's managers met Cream and Godley and told them that they didn't want just any video, they wanted an outrageous music video that not only featured the band, but also had the theme that was something sexual. The group's managers had learned that in America there were clubs that played music videos, and they wanted to do something that was sexy and controversial. So Cream went to LA for inspiration, while Godfrey went to the south of France. Cream saw mud wrestling while his partner Kevin saw some fashion shows. So they came up with the idea of doing a catwalk show, but with sumo wrestling, as well as topless women, mud wrestling, and pillow fighting. MTV co-founder John Sykes found the video was a great way to promote his fledgling MTV channel, remarking, "It was something that could never be played on broadcast networks, but we could play it on MTV." So it brought a lot of people over to cable and MTV to not only discover the cool new bands, but also the art form that was not yet ready for primetime television. The video would be banned by the BBC in England, and MTV had to show a heavily censored version of it. But clubs and adult channels broadcast the uncensored version, and Girls on Film became the first controversial video in the new era of MTV. John Taylor later remarked, "Girls on Film is pretty insane. I mean, it's like Penthouse or Hustler. It's cheesy, but it worked." He'd go on to add, "There's no plot to Girls on Film. The only plot was to set up some sexy scenes with girls. You don't need a plot to make a cool video." Despite the controversy though, it wasn't enough to muster up any significant airplay or record sales in America for the group's debut album. You have to remember this was in the early days of MTV, and the network was only on in a couple markets. The band and their label did, however, notice that the markets that broadcast MTV did have strong radio airplay and record sales in those markets. So when MTV expanded in the subsequent years, it of course played a pivotal role in breaking the band in America, something we'll talk about in a bit. Once Duran Duran got off the road for their first record, they went right back into the studio to work on their follow-up, Rio. It was one Saturday morning following a long night of drinking that Simon and Nick entered the studio, and Nick had just bought a new synthesizer and wanted to doodle around with it. And it resulted in the song Hungry Like the Wolf. The rest of the band assembled, and by the cocktail hour the same day, the song was finished. The laugh at the beginning and the moans during the fade out would be performed by Rhodes' then girlfriend. Le Bon's lyrics on the album were said to be inspired by both Joy Division and The Doors' Jim Morrison. After the sessions for Rio were completed, the band's label, who were intent on breaking into America, shot a video for the song The Chauffeur that was kind of in the same risque vein as Girls on Film. But MTV's top brass rejected it, with the network's senior vice president stating that they needed to come up with something different, since a lot of bands were using the same set pieces, same directors, and same models. So the band's label, thanks to low production costs, somewhere in the range of $30,000, flew the group and a crew to Sri Lanka to shoot 3 music videos for Hungry Like the Wolf, Lonely in Your Nightmare, and Save a Prayer. The inspiration for Hungry Like the Wolf supposedly came from Raiders of the Lost Ark, with the band members crediting Le Bon's drama background for helping sell the video. As for the Indiana Jones style hat, that was a last minute addition. The night before the video shoot for Hungry Like the Wolf, Le Bon wanted highlights in his hair, but the girl at the salon did it completely wrong and it turned his hair bright yellow. So they decided at the last minute to give him an Indiana Jones style hat. Rhodes told the Associated Press, "Sri Lanka has big temples, shrines, and things. For Save a Prayer and Hungry Like the Wolf, we wanted jungles and cafes and things. For Lonely in Your Nightmare, we needed a carnival atmosphere. There's a lot of things in Sri Lanka. It's been described as the nearest place to paradise." It was following the video shoots in Sri Lanka the band headed to Australia and Japan to play the first shows of the Rio tour. While the album was a huge hit in Duran Duran's home country, debuting at the number 4 spot, it eventually went on to peak at number 2. The band still couldn't crack the States. 4 months after the album came out, Hungry Like the Wolf failed to chart on US radio, as programmers were reluctant to play Duran Duran, favoring more rock-oriented songs. Despite Billboard magazine even giving the record a favorable review, calling it catchy, melodic, and accessible with bright and sassy pop, the record debuted at only the number 164th spot on Billboard's top LPs and tape chart for the first week of June. A month later, it eventually made its way all the way to the number 122nd spot, but by August, it was falling off the charts. But things were about to change. The first one was that in the summer of '82, Duran Duran opened for Blondie. Then the group's label brought in David Kirschenbaum to remix several songs to make the group more aligned with what rock radio in the States was playing, with a greater emphasis on making the guitars louder and the drums punchier while toning down the keyboards. It resulted in the 4-track EP called Carnival that came out in September of '82. You also had LA station K-Rock, who became an early backer of Duran Duran, as well as New York station WLIR, playing Hungry Like the Wolf, helping the band get more attention in America. Of course, couple this with the groundbreaking and memorable video for Hungry Like the Wolf, and the brass at MTV, who wrote off The Chauffeur, quickly changed their tune when they reviewed the video, proclaiming it as the best video they'd ever seen. Compared to what MTV was showing at the time, Duran Duran were innovative. They were filming videos in tropical locations with mini storylines and using 35mm film, further enhancing their productions. By the end of the year, the band appeared and performed at MTV's New Year's Eve ball. It was by January of '83, Hungry Like the Wolf topped the top rock tracks chart, and by March of '83, it peaked at number 3 on the Hot 100 chart, staying on the charts for 23 consecutive weeks. Rio, meanwhile, peaked at number 14 on the same chart, while Save a Prayer peaked at number 16. By November of '82, the band's label issued a remix version of Rio, and by 1983, Rio went on to spend an astounding 129 weeks on the album chart. It would peak at number 6. It soon went double platinum in America, and the band's label reissued the group's first album, which ended up going platinum in the States as well. As for the legacy of Hungry Like the Wolf, MTV named it the 15th most played video on the network's history and 11th on the 100 greatest videos ever made. It even won a Grammy for Best Short Form Music Video, becoming the first music video to win that award. The media hyped Duran Duran as the new Beatles or the second British Invasion, and frequently labeled them as the Fab Five. Rio was only the beginning, as the band had another series of top 10 hits and 2 chart-topping singles, and in a rare feat, they managed to stay relevant during the 90s, as many of their new wave peers fell by the wayside. They've continued to have success throughout the rest of their career, and were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.